Hi, very glad to see you on the channel. Before you start listening to the story, write in the comments whether you like the voice on the video. When I married Emily, I thought I had found someone who truly saw me. We built a life together, a partnership, or at least that's what I thought it was. But somewhere along the way, it stopped being us and became all about her. She wasn't always this way. At the start, she was kind, supportive, my best friend. But as her fitness career took off, things changed. She started spending hours at the gym, obsessing over every post, every comment, every follower. She lived for the validation of strangers, chasing numbers on a screen like they meant more than the people in her real life, including me. It started with small things, canceling date nights because she was too tired, brushing off my attempts at conversation with a distracted nod while scrolling through her phone. Then came the jokes, the ones she told at my expense. Daniel is great, but let's be real, he's no gym guy, she'd say, smirking at her friends. I practically have to drag him onto a treadmill. They would laugh, and I would force a smile, pretending it didn't bother me. Because if I said anything, I was the problem. The breaking point came at her parents' anniversary dinner. A fancy restaurant, dim lighting, the kind of place where people whispered over candlelit tables. I was seated beside Emily, her family around us, all of them talking over each other in the way families do. Then the conversation turned to Emily's career. "You've really built something amazing," her father said, raising his glass. "It must be exhausting keeping up with it all." Emily beamed. "It is. The gym, the sponsorships, the videos, it's a lot. But it's worth it." Her sister turned to me. "And what about you, Daniel? You still working from home?" I nodded, swallowing a sip of my drink. "Yeah, Emily cut in before I could finish. "Oh, you know Daniel," she said, waving a hand. "He works, but he mostly just handles stuff around the house. He has it easy compared to me." Laughter. My jaw clenched. "Emily," I said, keeping my voice even, "I work full-time." She shrugged. "I mean, yeah, but come on, you get to stay home all day. It's not like you have to deal with people, meetings, schedules." She turned back to her family, already moving on. Meanwhile, I'm juggling brand deals, my YouTube channel, training sessions, right? I said, my voice sharper now. Because being self-employed isn't real work? Emily blinked, like she was surprised I'd said anything. "Oh, don't be so sensitive," she said, laughing. "I was just joking." And there it was. The excuse. The one she always used when she crossed the line. Her mother cleared her throat, clearly uncomfortable. I could feel the weight of everyone's eyes on me, waiting to see if I would push back. Instead, I did what I always did. I let it go, because arguing in front of her family wouldn't do anything except make me look like the bad guy. So I sat there, finishing my meal in silence while Emily continued acting like I didn't exist. But inside, something was cracking, because this wasn't just one bad night. This was our life. And for the first time, I wondered if I still wanted it. The anniversary dinner sat heavy in my mind for days. The way Emily had laughed at me, the way her family had followed her lead, brushing me off like I was nothing. I had told myself to let it go. Again, but something was different this time. This time, the anger didn't fade. It simmered beneath the surface, waiting. Then came the night with her friends. The night I stopped pretending. Emily had invited a group of her fitness buddies over, people she had met through the gym, influencers she collaborated with, people who care more about protein intake and engagement rates than real conversation. I didn't want to sit through another night of feeling like an outsider in my own home, but she insisted. "It'll be fun," she said, pecking my cheek. "You never socialize. You need this." Like she was doing me a favor. So I played along, sat there quietly while they swapped gym stories and talked about sponsorships and upcoming content shoots. Then Emily steered the conversation toward me. "Daniel's not really into the fitness thing," she said, shaking her head dramatically. "I've tried, but he just doesn't have the dedication." I clenched my jaw. One of the guys, Alec, her personal trainer, the one always commenting on her posts, chuckled. "Well, not everyone's cut out for the grind, man." Emily smirked. "Oh, trust me, I know. I practically have to beg him to come to the gym with me. Last time, he nearly passed out during a warm-up." Laughter, the kind that stung. I took a slow breath, fingers tightening around my drink. "That's not what happened." Emily waved me off. "Babe, it's fine. We all have different strengths. Your thing is, working from home, and house stuff. My thing. Like I was some background character in my own life. More laughter, more comments. And I realized something in that moment. She didn't respect me. She never had. I set my drink down carefully, pushing my chair back. The laughter faded as people noticed. Emily frowned. Daniel. I looked straight at her. Really looked at her. I'm done, I said, my voice calm but firm. Her eyes flickered with confusion. What? I gestured around the room. With this. With being your punchline. A stunned silence settled over the group. Emily's friends shifted uncomfortably, eyes darting between us. Emily let out a nervous laugh. Babe, come on, it was just a joke. I shook my head. No, it wasn't. She scoffed. Daniel, don't be dramatic, I'm not. I exhaled slowly, standing taller than I had in years. I've spent too much time letting you treat me like an afterthought. Like I don't matter. I met her gaze. But I do. And I'm done letting you act like I don't. Her face paled. Daniel, can we talk about this later? No, I said simply. We can't. And then, in front of all her friends, I turned and walked out. For the first time, I didn't stay. I didn't try to smooth things over. I left her sitting there, exposed, forced to deal with the mess she made. And as I stepped outside, breathing in the cool night air, I realized something else. This wasn't just a bad night. This was the beginning of the end. I didn't go back home that night. I drove around the city instead, letting the streetlights blur past as my mind raced. Emily had been humiliating me for years, and I had let it happen. But not anymore. Walking out in front of her friends had felt like taking the first real breath in a long time. But deep down, there was still a gnawing feeling that I couldn't shake. Something wasn't right. I didn't have proof. Not yet. But my gut told me that Emily's cruelty, her distance, the way she seemed so detached from our marriage, it wasn't just about social media. It was about something else, and I needed to find out what. The next morning, I went home. Emily was waiting. She was standing in the kitchen, arms crossed, foot tapping against the tile. You really embarrassed me last night, she said the moment I walked in. I dropped my keys on the counter. Good. Her lips parted slightly, like she couldn't believe I had actually said it. Excuse me. I walked past her, heading toward the stairs. I'm not doing this with you right now, Emily. Of course you're not, she snapped. You just storm out like a child instead of handling things like an adult. I paused on the steps, looking over my shoulder. Handling things? You mean sitting there while you mock me in front of your friends? No thanks. She scoffed. You're overreacting. I didn't reply. I just walked upstairs, closing the bedroom door behind me. I needed space. I needed answers. Later that afternoon, Emily left for the gym. She had started going at odd hours lately. Late at night, early in the mornings, always saying she needed to get footage for a new video or train with Alec. Alec, her personal trainer. The guy who always hovered a little too close in her videos. The guy who was always the first to comment on her posts. The guy who had laughed a little too hard at my expense. I sat there for a long time, staring at nothing, feeling something heavy settle in my chest. Then, finally I moved. I went to her side of the closet, pulled open drawers, checked the nightstand. Nothing unusual. But then I spotted a small black box tucked behind her gym bags. I pulled it out, flipped the lid open, and felt my stomach drop. Inside was a gold bracelet. Expensive. Engraved on the inside. For my strongest girl. Hey, Alec. My hands clenched into fists. I stared at that engraving for what felt like forever, my heart pounding, my vision tunneling. This was it. The confirmation I hadn't wanted. Emily wasn't just disrespecting me. She was cheating on me. I closed the box, placed it back exactly where I found it, and took a slow, measured breath. I had options. I could rage. I could confront her the second she walked through the door. I could demand answers. But Emily was a liar. She would deny it, twist the story, make herself the victim. I needed proof, real proof. And once I had it, she wouldn't be able to talk her way out of it. That night, I stayed awake long after Emily had come home. I listened to the sound of the shower running, the soft hum of her phone vibrating with notifications. I knew exactly what I had to do next. If she wanted to play games, she had picked the wrong opponent. Because I was done being the fool. And by the time I was finished, the whole world would know who she really was. I had spent years letting Emily walk all over me, letting her words cut deep while I swallowed my pride. But now, I had clarity. The gold bracelet with Alex's initials was all the confirmation I needed. Emily had been cheating. I didn't need to confront her to know she'd lie straight to my face, gaslight me, twist the situation until I was the villain for even asking. So I wouldn't ask. I'd prove it. And when the time was right, I'd expose her for exactly what she was. Step 1. Gathering evidence. Emily's biggest mistake, besides underestimating me, was thinking I was too blind to see the truth. She had gotten sloppy, comfortable in her little game. She thought she had complete control. She was about to learn just how wrong she was. The next morning, I woke up early. Emily was still asleep, her phone charging on the nightstand. I glanced at her, watching the slow rise and fall of her breath, completely unaware of what I was about to do. She always left her phone unlocked at night. She never thought I'd check. Carefully, I reached over and picked it up, scrolling straight to her messages. And there it was. Alec, last night was unreal. Can't wait for our next session. Emily, me too. He has no idea. LOL. I clenched my jaw. My fingers hovered over the screen, but I didn't take screenshots. That was amateur. If I sent them to myself, she'd notice. Instead, I backed out and went straight to her photo gallery. Videos, pictures, all taken late at night. Some were innocent, staged fitness content for her social media. But others? One clip showed her sitting in the passenger seat of Alex's car, laughing, her hand on his chest. Another had her recording in front of a gym mirror, with Alex standing just behind her, his hands low on her waist. I took a deep breath, placed the phone back exactly where I found it, and got up. That was enough for now. Step 2. Tracking her movements. Emily had been using the excuse of late-night gym sessions for weeks, and I wanted to know exactly where she was going. So I installed a GPS tracker on her car. A small, undetectable device, something she'd never notice. The first night, she left at 10 p.m., same as always. The app on my phone showed her parked behind the gym for about 20 minutes. Then she moved. Alex's apartment. I stared at the screen, at the blinking that confirmed everything I'd already suspected. She was so predictable. Step 3. The final setup. I could have confronted her that night. I could have waited for her to get home, sat her down, showed her the texts, the pictures, the GPS location, and demanded the truth. But why should I give her that courtesy? She had spent months disrespecting me, humiliating me, treating me like I was nothing. Now, it was her turn to be embarrassed. So, I set the stage for something much bigger. A public reveal. Some lies deserve to be exposed in front of an audience. Emily lived for her image. Her online persona was her entire world. She wanted the spotlight. I was going to give it to her. I reached out to one of her brand sponsors, pretended to be her, using an email account I knew she rarely checked. I told them she wanted to host a live-streamed special event at the gym, something to engage her audience and show her dedication to fitness. They loved the idea. The gym agreed. The event was set for Friday night. The same night, she always worked late with Alec. The stage was ready. Now all I had to do was wait. Friday arrived, and Emily was buzzing with excitement. I can't believe the gym is letting me do this live stream. She gushed over breakfast, barely glancing up from her phone. This could get me so many new followers. I sipped my coffee, nodding. Sounds like a big night. She smiled, completely oblivious. You should come, she said, almost like an afterthought. Show some support for once. Oh, I'd be there. I just wouldn't be the one who needed support. That night, I arrived at the gym before Emily, blending into the crowd as the event started. A few fitness influencers had shown up, gym staff was recording, and Emily was all smiles as she took center stage. She had no idea what was coming. The live stream began. The cameras rolled. People watched online as she spoke into the mic, hyping up the audience about dedication, hard work, discipline. And then, right on cue, I stepped forward. I pulled my phone from my pocket and mirrored the screen to the gym's display monitors. The images filled the screens. The texts, the GPS tracker logs, the video of her in Alex's car. The gym fell silent. Emily turned, blinking at the screens, realizing too late what was happening. I stepped up beside her, taking the mic. Since we're live, I just want to make sure everyone got to see the real Emily, I said, my voice calm, steady. Not just the fitness influencer, but the wife who's been sneaking around with her trainer. Alec paled in the crowd. Emily's face drained of color. Gasps filled the gym. Some people had their phones up, recording. I turned to Emily, watching as the shock melted into panic. Got anything to say? I asked, holding out the mic. She opened her mouth, but nothing came out. So I smiled, nodded, and then, just as smoothly as I'd set this all up, I walked out. Let her deal with the fallout. Let her feel, for once, what it was like to be on the other side of humiliation. Because I was done, and she was about to watch her whole world fall apart. I didn't stop walking until I reached my car. The cool night air hit my face, but I barely felt it. My heart was steady, my breath even. I had imagined this moment for weeks, the moment she realized she had lost. The crowd's reaction had been exactly what I expected. Shock, whispers, phones raised to record the spectacle. By the time I walked out of that gym, Emily's perfect image had already started to crumble. And I wasn't finished yet. I slid into the driver's seat, gripping the wheel. My phone buzzed in my pocket, but I ignored it. I already knew who it was. Emily. Desperate. Panicking. Scrambling to undo what couldn't be undone. I took my time driving home. The city lights blurred past, my mind clear for the first time in a long time. I'd spent years letting her control the narrative, making me feel like I wasn't enough. Tonight, I took that power back, and it felt damn good. When I got home, I wasn't surprised to see Emily's car already in the driveway. She had sped past me on the highway, driving like a maniac, probably trying to get home first, to get ahead of the conversation she knew was coming. Too late. I stepped out of my car and walked up the front steps, unlocking the door. The moment I stepped inside, I heard her voice. What the hell was that, Daniel? I shut the door behind me, slowly turning to face her. She was standing in the middle of the living room, still in her gym clothes, hair slightly disheveled, her face red, not from embarrassment, but from rage. I dropped my keys on the counter. You tell me. She let out a bitter laugh, shaking her head. You humiliated me. In front of everyone. I crossed my arms. You mean the way you've humiliated me for months? Years. I took a step closer, watching as she stiffened. I didn't lie, Emily. I didn't make anything up. I just let the truth speak for itself. She ran a hand through her hair, pacing. You don't get it, do you? You blew up my entire career. I scoffed. There it was. The real reason she was mad. Not because she hurt me. Not because she ruined our marriage. Because I exposed her in a way she couldn't control. I tilted my head. Your career? Oh, you mean your authentic fitness journey? The one where you preach dedication and loyalty while sneaking around with your trainer. Her nostrils flared. It's not like that. I laughed, shaking my head. Really? Because the texts, the videos, the GPS tracker all seemed to say otherwise. Her eyes widened. You tracked me? I leaned against the counter. You were lying to my face every single night. Forgive me for wanting actual proof before you could gaslight me into thinking I was crazy. She took a deep breath, lowering her voice. Daniel, can we talk about this? In private. I raised an eyebrow. You want privacy now? After your entire life has been broadcast online. I gestured toward the front door. Newsflash, Emily. You live on the internet. And tonight, the internet saw the real you. Her lip trembled. For a second, I almost thought she'd cry. But then, just as quickly, her expression hardened. You ruined me, she hissed. No, Emily. I exhaled, shaking my head. You did that all by yourself. She clenched her fists. So what? You want a divorce? Is that what this is? I let the silence stretch between us before nodding. Yes. She swallowed hard, like she wasn't expecting me to actually say it. Just like that. I sighed, my voice steady. No, Emily. Not just like that. You've been pushing me out of this marriage for years. You just never thought I'd walk away first. Her shoulders tensed. She looked down at the floor, her breathing uneven. Finally, she whispered, I didn't think you'd actually leave. I shook my head. That's the problem, isn't it? For years, she had relied on my loyalty. She had assumed, no matter what she did, how much she disrespected me, belittled me, I would always be there. She had underestimated me. And now, she was realizing exactly what that mistake would cost her. I turned and walked toward the stairs. I'll have the papers sent over this week. Her voice cracked. Where are you going? I didn't look back. To pack. Then, just like I did at the gym, I left her standing there. Because I had wasted enough of my life waiting for her to change. And finally, I was done. I didn't sleep that night. I packed my bags, cleared out my belongings, and left Emily downstairs, pacing the living room like a caged animal. She didn't try to stop me, not directly. I could hear her phone ringing over and over, hear the faint murmurs of her panicked voice as she desperately tried to do damage control. The gym scandal had already spread. The live-streamed exposure had been clipped, reposted, dissected by social media accounts that live for influencer drama. Her entire brand, the perfect fitness guru, the loyal wife, was unraveling in real time. She wasn't fighting for me. She was fighting for her reputation. And I wasn't about to stick around to watch her spin another lie. By the time the sun rose, I was done. Suitcases packed, paperwork gathered, every trace of my life with her erased. I grabbed my bags and headed for the door. That's when she finally spoke. "Daniel," she said, her voice hoarse. I didn't turn around. She tried again. "Please, can we talk before you go?" I sighed, gripping the handle of my suitcase. "Talk about what?" She stepped closer, barefoot on the hardwood floor, looking nothing like the confident woman she presented to the world. Her hair was messy, her face was pale, and for the first time in years, she looked small. "Everything," she whispered. I exhaled sharply. "You had months to talk to me, Emily. Years, even." I turned my head slightly, just enough to look at her. "You only care now because you got caught." She flinched. "That's not true." I scoffed. "It's not? Then tell me. If I hadn't exposed you, if I hadn't found proof, would you have ever told me the truth?" Her lips parted, but no words came out. That was my answer. I shook my head and pulled the door open. "Goodbye, Emily." She panicked then, reached out, grabbed my wrist. "Wait, just wait." I stopped, not because I wanted to, but because I wanted to hear what pathetic excuse she had left. Tears welled up in her eyes. I didn't want this. I never wanted to lose you. I stared at her, expression unreadable. "Then why did you do it?" "Alec." The lies. The public humiliation. The months of sneaking around, thinking I'd never figure it out. She swallowed hard. "I don't know." I pulled my wrist free. "Yeah," I said quietly. "That's the problem, isn't it?" And then I walked out, leaving her behind. I moved into a temporary apartment that afternoon. Nothing fancy, just a small, one-bedroom unit with no memories of her. It was the first place I had ever lived in that was entirely mine. No shared furniture. No reminders of a life I had wasted on a woman who never deserved me. The silence felt strange at first, but eventually it felt like freedom. Emily tried calling. At first, it was nonstop. "Emily, 8 missed calls. Please answer. I just want to talk. Can we meet?" I never responded. I had nothing left to say. Then, when she realized I wasn't playing along, her messages turned bitter. "You're really just walking away? After everything we've been through? You humiliated me. You ruined my career. You think people will take your side forever? They'll forget. I'll fix this. You'll see." I laughed at that one. She still didn't get it. This wasn't just about a scandal. This was about who she really was. And people were finally seeing it. A week after I left, Emily's sponsorships started dropping. The fitness brands that once lined up to work with her, gone. The fans who worshipped her perfect image, turning on her. I heard through mutual friends that Alec had ghosted her, too. The moment she became a liability, he bailed. I had expected that. Guys like Alec don't stick around when there's nothing left to gain. And Emily? She had put all her faith in a guy who didn't even think she was worth the mess. Karma at its finest. One night, about 2 weeks after I left, I ran into an old friend at a bar. Jason, one of the guys I had lost touch with when Emily started taking over my life. "Man," he said, shaking his head as he slid into the booth across from me. "I can't believe you actually did it." I smirked. Left her, exposed her, walked away without looking back. He let out a low whistle. "Legendary." I laughed, taking a sip of my drink. "Had to be done." He studied me for a second. "You seem lighter." I raised an eyebrow. Jason grinned. "Like you're finally living for yourself." I thought about that for a moment. He was right. For the first time in years, I was living life on my own terms. No more walking on eggshells. No more being a joke in my own marriage. No more Emily. I nodded, raising my glass. To fresh starts. Jason clinked his beer against mine. To never dating influencers. We both laughed. And for the first time in a long time, it was real. I knew Emily wouldn't go down without a fight. She had lost control of the narrative, and for someone who built her entire existence around image, that was a fate worse than anything I could have planned. But there was still one thing she had left to lose me, not in the emotional sense. No, Emily wasn't fighting for our marriage. She was fighting for what came with it. The stability, the lifestyle, the man who had stood quietly in the background, supporting her while she played out a fantasy life for the world to see. And now that I was gone, she wanted to make me pay. The divorce papers were filed within a week of me leaving. I had a lawyer lined up before I even walked out the door, a no-nonsense bulldog of a man who had seen every trick in a book. He skimmed over my case, nodded, and said, "This is going to be easy." Emily had no legal ground to stand on. No kids, no shared business, no legitimate claim to alimony. But my lawyer warned, she's going to try to drag this out. Women like her, they don't let go easily. I already knew that, and I was ready for whatever she had planned. The first legal meeting was held in a downtown office, a sleek, glass-walled conference room where divorces were settled with fake smiles and passive-aggressive paperwork. I arrived early, dressed sharp, feeling more in control than I had in years. Emily walked in 15 minutes late, sunglasses on, dressed in an outfit designed to look effortless, but I knew her too well. She had spent hours curating every detail of how she would appear today. She barely glanced at me as she sat down across the table. Her lawyer, some overpriced Hollywood type, leaned forward. "Let's get started." My lawyer was direct. "This is a straightforward case. Mr. Daniel has outlined clear terms. No alimony, a clean financial split, and no further claims from either party." Emily didn't react. She just watched me. Her lawyer sighed, flipping through the paperwork. "Miss Emily feels that she has made significant contributions to their shared life together and should be compensated fairly." I let out a short laugh. Compensated? For what? Emily's gaze hardened. "For the years I spent building something for both of us." I shook my head. "No, Emily, you built something for yourself, and you made it very clear I wasn't part of it." Her lawyer cleared his throat. "Miss Emily also believes she's entitled to financial support due to the damage done to her career. The public nature of the separation has led to lost sponsorships and income. She is requesting a settlement to offset these losses." I exhaled sharply, rubbing a hand over my jaw. "So let me get this straight." I leaned forward, locking eyes with her. "You lied to me. You cheated on me. You turned me into a joke. And now, you want me to pay you for it." Emily's jaw tightened, but she didn't say a word. Her lawyer adjusted his tie. "We feel this is a reasonable request given." "No." My lawyer cut in, voice cold. "This isn't a negotiation. The terms are final." The room went still. Emily finally spoke. "Daniel," her voice softened, taking on that familiar, calculated tone she used whenever she wanted to manipulate me. "Can we just talk? Alone?" I exhaled. "No, Emily. We're past that." Something flickered across her face, panic. She had assumed that beneath all of this, there was still a part of me that wanted to fix things. She was wrong. My lawyer pushed the papers toward her. "You can sign today and make this easy, or we could take it to court. And trust me, Miss Emily, you do not want this in court." Her lawyer whispered something in her ear. She sat frozen for a moment, then slowly reached for the pen. Her fingers curled around it, hesitation evident. Then, finally she signed. And just like that, it was over. After the meeting, I walked out of that office feeling lighter. Emily didn't try to follow me. She didn't say another word. She had lost. Completely. I got in my car, gripping the steering wheel, staring ahead at the city skyline. The realization sank in. I was free. No more lies. No more humiliation. No more waking up every day feeling like I had to fight for scraps of respect from my own wife. For the first time in years, my future was mine. I smiled, turned the ignition, and drove away without looking back. The day my divorce was finalized, I didn't throw a party. I didn't celebrate with friends. I didn't even post some cryptic message online like Emily probably would have. Instead, I sat alone in my new apartment, staring at the paperwork that officially ended the worst mistake of my life. And for the first time in years, I felt something I had almost forgotten. Relief. No more fights. No more humiliation. No more feeling like a ghost in my own marriage. I was free. At first, I wasn't sure what to do with that freedom. My entire life had revolved around Emily for so long. Her career, her schedule, her drama. I had spent so much time trying to make things work that I had lost sight of who I was without her. So I started small. I reclaimed my space. I got rid of everything that reminded me of Emily. The expensive furniture she insisted on, the ridiculous kitchen gadgets she never used, the oversized mirror she bought just to take selfies in. I replaced them with things that felt like me. A leather couch that was actually comfortable, a decent coffee maker, a shelf filled with books I had never gotten around to reading because I had been too busy playing her supporting character. Little by little, I rebuilt my home. And then, I started rebuilding myself. I reconnected with friends. People I had pushed away because Emily never liked them, or because I was always too drained from dealing with her. Jason, my old college roommate, dragged me out to bars and forced me to laugh again. My brother, who had seen through Emily from the start, welcomed me back into his life without hesitation. "You seem different," he said one night over dinner. I raised an eyebrow. "Different how?" He smirked, like a guy who finally took off a weight he didn't realize he was carrying. I thought about that for a moment. He was right. I had spent years trying to convince myself I was happy when, deep down, I knew I wasn't. And now, without Emily's shadow looming over me, I felt lighter, like I could finally breathe. The biggest change came with my career. Emily had always looked down on my work, treating it like a side hobby while her influencer empire took center stage. But now, I poured everything into it, and for the first time, I thrived. I landed a major contract that set me up financially. I had meetings with people who actually respected my input. I built something that was mine. One day, as I was finalizing a deal, I got a notification on my phone. Breaking news. Fitness influencer Emily faces backlash after cheating scandal. I clicked the link. It was worse than I had imagined. Her sponsors had dropped her. Her followers had turned on her. The internet, once her playground, was now her battlefield. People were digging up old videos, analyzing her past behavior, pointing out how fake she had always been. The scandal hadn't just exposed her affair. It had shattered the illusion she built her entire brand on. She was falling apart. And for the first time in years, it wasn't my problem. One night, months after the divorce, I was sitting at a coffee shop, lost in thought, when a voice pulled me back. "Daniel?" I looked up. It was Emily. I hadn't seen her in person since the divorce papers were signed. She looked different. Not bad, just tired. The confidence, the arrogance that had always radiated from her, it was gone. She gave me a weak smile. "I wasn't sure if you'd talk to me." I shrugged. "Depends. What do you want?" She shifted awkwardly, fingers playing with the sleeve of her jacket. "I don't know. I guess I just wanted to see how you were doing." I took a sip of my coffee. "I'm doing great." She nodded, looking down. "That's good." "Really?" There was something sad in her eyes, a quiet realization that everything she had done, everything she had thrown away, had led her here, to a moment where the only thing she could do was look at me and regret. She opened her mouth, like she wanted to say something more, but I didn't let her. I stood up, tossing a few dollars on the table for my coffee. "Take care, Emily." She blinked, surprised. "That's it." I smiled. Not bitter, not angry, just free. "Yeah," I said. "That's it." And then I walked out, leaving her behind for good. Because my life, it was just getting started. Thank you for listening to the end. I hope you enjoyed it very much. Don't forget to give a like and tell us in the comments what you would do in such a situation.